Hey, gang. Welcome to Kill Your Darlings. My name is Nick Nethery, and today I'm interviewing my good friend and occasional co-conspirator in writing, Spearman Burke, also known as
Aloha.
Mike. How you doing, Mike?
I am doing outstanding. There's a little snow on the ground, but I don't have to go out in it. So
Oh,
cheers.
fantastic. So, where, I mean, you don't have to tell me exactly, but roughly where, you're near Kansas City, right?
Yeah, I live about an hour outside of Kansas City.
I love Kansas City. It's one of my favorite cities, honestly. I did a year at Fort Leavenworth, and not in the disciplinary barracks, but for school. But I was struck when we got there by how much I love that area. So it's a
Yeah,
great area. Cool. So you and I have written together and bounced ideas off each other for, geez, over 10 years now, right?
yeah.
Um,
The duffel
and
blog.
yeah, we were duffel blog writers together back in the day, back when God was a boy. Um, what is your how did you? So I know you did a little time in the Marine Corps, just a
Just a little
few
bit.
minutes, right?
Yeah.
But how did you make the transition from like Marine grunt into thinking that you wanted to write? What's your like writing origin
Yeah.
story?
My writing origin story. Here we go, people. Between the times when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise, I've always loved like the first, like I grew up reading comic books and stuff like that, right? Like most young lads do. And the first book that I picked off the shelf to read for my own was a Conan book, right? Robert E. Howard. And so I grew up reading Robert E. Howard and Edgar Rice Burroughs, John Carter Mars, and H.P. Lovecraft and all that stuff. And I was fascinated first with short stories, like how, because that's how a lot of the Robert E. Howard stories are. Like he
Right.
has very books or novels, novellas, or whatnot. Um, and I always thought that was really cool. And then, later I joined the Marine Corps, spent 26 years in the Marine Corps, and continued my reading of sci-fi and fantasy. And writing wise, I started out like writing my own blog while I was in Iraq. And at the time it was called, it wound up being called America's First Sergeant or America's Sergeant Major, right? And I was just telling funny stories about being a Marine.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between telling anecdotal, funny stories and crafting a fictional one. And so I was good at telling you, hey, this funny thing happened to me on the way to the burn pit, right? But I didn't know how to craft a story that I was inventing. Like we talked about this before. We can always come up with these cool ideas, but like where's the story?
Right.
And then John Ringo had an anthology out called Citizens, which I thought was a brilliantly named anthology of science fiction stories written by veterans. And I recall I was a active duty first sergeant in Bahrain at the time in the Persian Gulf, and one of the authors was an active duty Air Force pilot, and her name was Casey Azell, and she was one of the authors in the book. And I was like, active duty, I mean, and it just like blew my mind. I was like, you mean we can do this? Like we, right? It hadn't occurred to me that I could be doing this too, right? And so that kind of, was like, oh, this is possible, right, to get into. And then eventually I dabbled a little bit in trying to do storytelling. And while I was in active duty, how I met you on the Duffel blog was we were writing funny, for the uninitiated, Duffel blog's kind of like the Onion, but it was for military. And so
military satire, yeah.
Military satire, and we were having fun with that. But again, that's different than crafting a fictional story to me.
Right.
And then when I retired, I used the GI Bill to go back to school, and I was like, yes, I'll take creative writing and English lit. And I discovered those don't teach you anything about storytelling. They teach you composition, and they allow you to write creatively, but they aren't teaching you the elements of story. And ironically, the thing that was teaching me the elements of story and how to tell a good story was theater. And so here I was, a 50-year-old guy, got sucked into the theater nerds, and I ended up minoring in theater. And I learned more about how to tell a story, how to structure a story. What are you trying to how to do characters, right? How to write your characters and all dialogue, everything from all my theater classes. I learned literary analysis in theater, right? Like it was eye-opening, like literature. And, you know, yes, read this passage. This is Shakespeare. This is how to write a sentence. Those were kind of disappointing. So,
Yeah.
again, people wanting a creative writing, people, it seems to me a lot of the writers we run into don't have degrees in writing. They have a degree in something else. So I am convinced that you don't need a writing or English lit degree to be a writer, right?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, back in the day, no journalist had an actual journalism degree, you know. They just were like alive, you know. They just observe. They had a keen observational sense, but it's not like they were credentialed, you know.
Right. Well, and even then, I graduated school and, you know, started seriously getting into writing, and I would say I have learned more about storytelling and how to write since then, not because of school.
Right.
If that makes sense at all. Because once I got seriously into it, you know, I was trying to figure out what's working for me, you know, looking up new things and advice other people are giving out, and you can accept some of it, try it out, see what's working for you. And, you know, at the moment I have things that I think work for me, but I reserve the right to change my opinion and try something else that works better. Right.
Yeah, of course. Oh. It's always a mulligan stew, I think, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So, and then you and I eventually collaborated on a short story for the Navy's fiction contest, right?
Yeah. The U.S. Naval Institute. What was that? 2019, 2020?
We wrote it in 19. I think it was 20 because I remember I was moving from Germany that was when I moved from South Africa to NATO, and we were in the guest house in Geilenkirchen in Germany, and so that must have been fall of 20 that we that was when that happened. So, but we were writing it earlier in the year.
Yeah.
I think we wrote it like March to May or something, and then submitted it, and then. I don't think we expected to win, did we? We were just like, we'll try this.
We didn't expect anything to happen, and we go, oh, you won it. Oh my gosh. Well, and that was the moment you and I were like, seriously, like, hey, maybe we don't suck and we can take a turn. And really, that's kind of both of our first published real science fiction story. Like we've been published with Double Blog. You and I both have professional papers published by the U.S. Naval Institute, which are different things, right? That just means we can write.
Yeah. A foreign policy little article here and there, but yeah, nothing.
You name it. Yeah.
Right.
We can effectively communicate. So how do we translate that into science fiction? And, you know, one of the things I think I remember us doing was asking questions like, why is this happening? Right? Like, this event just occurred. What are they going to do to, you know, to accomplish the goal that they're trying to achieve in this mission, right? Because we went so far as to write our own frago, right? Our fragmentation order.
That's right. That's right. We did do that, didn't we? So that Marine platoon that's in the story, they had a whole operations order that the reader never saw, but that was just kind of the back. It just kept us in the frame of mind of like, this is why she's here. The whole platoon, this is why they're here. This is what they're doing. This is the backstory of the mission. And I felt like it was, I felt like it gave the story a kind of a lived in feel.
Right.
Like we didn't need to over explain things to the reader. It just, I like that style of storytelling, kind of like, uh, where it feels like this little world will be going on whether you're reading about it or not, you know.
Mhm.
And I just I dislike the idea of I'm here as the reader or the viewer if you're watching something, and so now entertain me,
Yeah.
you know, like it put on a spectacle for me. No, I like the idea that I've just stumbled onto something accidentally, and these
Mhm.
people will be doing this regardless of whether I'm putting my eyeballs on them or not, you know?
Right.
So but since you brought up how I mean, we did kind of, we gave them problem after problem that they needed to solve. It, I'm glad you brought that up because you also had I feel like I learned from you this process that you have where I'm not a big believer in processes or checklists or whatever. And so when people talk about, like, you know, the hero's journey or inciting event and arc and like these diagrams and stuff, like I think those are great and they're helpful to be aware of, and they can help you if you're stuck sometimes. But you have this very fundamental kind of approach to plotting,
Mm.
and I think you call it character crisis
And a
decision,
decision.
or
Yeah. Yeah. Character crisis and a decision.
explain a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, and this started for me when you and I were trying to write those 50-word stories, right? For the postcards anthologies.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Press.
So those are for people that don't know, Rack into a Press, which I work for, and so does Mike. Back in the day, we haven't done one in a while, have we? But
Yeah.
so they used to do this writing challenge thing, and I think it started out just being only attendees of specific conventions, right? If you were in the bar or
Yeah.
if you were at a convention,
You would ask.
we'd
Yeah.
grab you and we'd say, hey, do you want to write a little short story? But it can only be 50 words, exactly 50
Mhm.
words. No, not 49, not
Right.
51, and
Right.
go. And I think,
And they would give you a visual prompt, like a
yeah,
picture that they
yeah, that's right.
generated,
And
and
yeah,
that was
that's
inspiration.
tough.
Well, and that's where I discovered, like, oh man, like for me, I submitted like 3 stories. Like every time they did that year, they did one. I was submitting them, and I realized that, like, oh, this is like I wrote a 50-word cool idea, but I didn't write a story, right?
Yeah,
And and then if we define a story as a character who who has a goal, right, or wants to achieve something and has to overcome obstacles in order to achieve that goal. Like that's the
right.
definition of a story. And I was like, how do I do that in 50 words? And I was like, okay, if I distill that definition down, maybe I can have a basic plot for a 50-word story, right? So I realized, okay, how is that distilled? I need a character. There needs to be a crisis, and that character has to make a decision. I can do that in 50 words. And once I nailed that down, my story got accepted. My 50-word story got accepted for oh man, it was one about a mouse. It was a picture of a mouse in a doctor's like a Howie style lab coat
I
and all
remember that
these
one.
things.
Yeah.
And I wrote this 50-word story about a mad scientist trying to transform herself back into a human, and World War III breaks out, and the decision is like, hey, maybe I'll stay a mouse. My supplies will last longer.
Yeah.
Um,
I think I have that one on my
but
bookshelf over there. Yeah.
oh, nice.
Was that
Um,
Postcards from Liberty or
oh gosh,
Postcards
what
from
was it?
Mars? Anyway, yeah.
Oh, oh, I can't remember either. Yeah. Um, and yeah, maybe it was the Imaginarium one. I can't remember, but that started me, and I realized I could apply that to an even larger short story.
Yeah.
Is I was able to take that and go, okay, I can start writing a 5,000 to 8,000 word short story using this same format, and it's just what worked for me, right? Like you, I'm very anti-formulaic, but right now that was the formula that often I use to start writing something. And I will usually know how a story begins and how it ends based on that, and then I fill in the middle as I'm
Yeah.
writing it to get there. And that so far has worked quite a bit. And in the meantime, I've tried other things too. It's not exactly that, because I reserve the right to break every rule in the book if it gets me to where I want
Yeah.
in the story.
Yeah. There's no secret ingredient. There's no
Oh,
rules.
yeah. Well, as an example, I have dabbled with something that's called the Lester Dent method. Lester Dent is the pseudonym for the guy who wrote all the Doc Savage stories back in the pulp era days,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
And he had a very formulaic thing he used. Now, keep in mind, one of the reasons he was doing that is because he was making a living by writing stories every week that he was selling,
Yeah.
right? Constantly in the pulp era. And so his thing was like, you break up your story into 1,500 word bites, and you do these very specific things. And I've been using that as a starting point, because my 4 parts aren't 1,500 words long. It's 1,100 words, 2,000 words, 800
Yeah.
words. And part 4 is 2,500 words, right? Just because it just works out that way. But it's a good jumping off point, I think, if you want to try different things. I also used to use a tool called the reverse check mark, and it's a great way of plotting out your story. If you look, you could Google reverse checkpoint plot, and it'll come up with little pictures, and it's a very simple way to do that. I've used that before as well, and I think for a lot of us who are starting out in the writing game, especially short fiction, that will help you.
Before I ask this question, I want to say I remember having, and I'd done it accidentally a few times without even realizing that I'd done it with a few short stories. But when you explained that to me the first time, I realized Alice Sudlow talks about this too in her podcast, Your Next Scene. Something has to change.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just making a shopping list, essentially. And those can be entertaining, just like a painting can be entertaining, but nothing changes. It's not a story, and so I remember when something about you saying that, and it just clicked in my brain. And ever since I started doing that, and it's not just the story, I think it's each scene, something has to be different, and it doesn't have to be wildly different. I mean, up is down, black is white, dogs and cats living together. It doesn't have to be drastic like that, but something has to change in each scene. Otherwise, why are you ending the scene?
Right.
If nothing has changed, why have you ended the story? And if you could write another 10,000 words and still nothing's changed, then maybe this isn't a story you should be writing. Go, find something that will excite you enough that you can imagine somebody making a decision, whether it's good or bad, or whether they might fail, but at least they've made it. They've tried. And that once you told me that, and I realized, I guess I have been doing that in the stories that I've actually sold. Ever since then, I've been much more successful. So I think that's a really fruitful, that's a really productive way to think about it. But the question I wanted to ask you is, do you prefer writing short fiction?
I'm going to say yes to that, mostly because I haven't written a book yet. I think I've gotten a really decent grasp on it at this point, and the way I do it has been working out. And I have a lot of fun with that, right? And which tells me it's time to start working on the new challenging thing, which would be working on a book.
Yeah. What does Stephen Pressfield say? Like, do the thing that you are scared of, because that's your mind. That's your mind telling you that is the thing you need to do.
Exactly. But I really do write it because I think I've got a grasp on it, and I've gotten pretty decent at telling a short story, and because it's simple and I can get it done in a week, right?
Yeah.
But and like, as you were well aware of, you don't make any money selling short fiction. That's just reality.
Yeah.
I think books are the way to go if you want to make any money at all in this industry. But if you're just having fun and you like creating short fiction, by all means, get after it. I do, right?
Oh yeah, it's dynamite. It's a lot of fun.
And I think I would love it if people were more into it. But I think right now, the way the industry is, it's books. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to link a bunch of short stories together to make an overarching novel.
Yeah, I remember when we moved here last year, I took a ton of books to Half Price Books, to just, I could have donated them to the library, but I wanted to get a little money out of them. So while I was waiting for them to like count them up and total up whatever because they look them up and then they give you whatever dollar value that they're going to give you. But I wandered around the store and I was, I browsed it here and there and the fiction and science fiction. And, I wandered over to art and self-help and military history and all, whatever. But as I was wandering around, finally it dawned on me, like, I don't see any of the short fiction. There's nothing like, and so I went to one of the clerks and I asked her, where's all of your short fiction collections? And she went, oh, we don't even bother. Nobody buys them. Nobody reads them. And I was like, really? And she goes, yeah, I mean, it's weird because she goes, I'm a reader, they don't hire people that don't love books and, in one of those places. She's like, yeah, I enjoy it myself time to time, but like, it's just something that, if you work in if you're a bookseller, like people for some reason just don't buy short fiction nowadays. Like and I wonder if it's like Westerns or detective stories, like if it's a thing that ebbs and flows, or if it's something that we've just, before the novel, epic poetry was the literary form. Like that's how you consumed literature. Like before this thing called the novel, which.
Well, and I think now when you're talking about traditional publishing and the big publishers, they're in the business to make money. So what they're selling is series, right? If you consider ever since Harry Potter, right, it's all about selling a series of books. Hunger Games, what is it? And because all these movie franchises are based off these books, right? Maze Runner.
Well, it's built-in nostalgia,
Well, that's why Marvel made a ton of money on its movies, because it was looking at Harry Potter going, we need an IP that we can keep making a series of movies and make it last a decade like they did with the Harry Potter movies. Now, and we're digressing a little bit, but I suspect that whole thing about a series is the reason why. You look at Game of Thrones, right? The big argument is, when is he going to finish it? Because we're invested in this, which has impacted the industry, because if you're a fantasy writer, you can't sell the first book in your trilogy. You have to have
all three. Yeah.
Or no one's going to buy it.
Yeah.
Because it's not done.
Yeah. He really screwed the rest of us, didn't he?
Yeah. So, and I think that might be one of the reasons, because a completed series is where it's at, which isn't a thing of short stories, right? And I think people will argue, well, I like reading, short stories, but the market isn't selling that much.
And I would submit to you also that those people, if you look at their buying habits, they probably don't buy much short fiction either. They're probably like the rest of us. I'm this way too, man. I still refuse to read anymore like the Locke Lamora books. There's supposed to be like 6 of them. There's only 3 so far. I'm not reading another one. I love them, but and so I don't know, maybe I should go ahead and buy the new one just to I don't know. But people vote with their wallets,
Yeah.
The market will bear what the market will bear. So anyway, so you've curated a few or edited, but it's really more like you select the stories.
Yeah.
A few anthologies at Raconteur with me, or not with me. We haven't collaborated on, but you've curated a few anthologies as well. What advice would you give to people that are submitting? Not like here's how you get a surefire yes from me, but like what are just a couple of your do's and don'ts, or like red flags and green flags?
My first bit of advice is, if you want me to read your whole story, at least kill the exposition. If you were writing a story and you spend the first 3 to 5 pages explaining why the empire of man is spread throughout the galaxy, or why blah blah blah, nobody cares. Nobody cares about the backstory, and no one cares about how your magic system works. No one really does. Short fiction in particular needs to start with your character doing something from the very first paragraph. Make me care about what's happening in that first paragraph. At Raconteur Press, we joke about a bad guy needs to be getting punched in the face on the first page. Not necessarily, but a character needs to be doing something interesting that makes me want to know what happens next, like right away. I guess the jargon is a hook, right? You need a hook. Because not everybody's writing science fiction or fantasy, right? So those are kind of action-oriented styles, but you can get away with that in another, there's a lot of great
any genre, right? I mean, if it's horror, something gross or scary needs to happen in the first page, or if it's a romance, like somebody needs to passionately kiss somebody on the first page, something,
Well, and there's American literature. If you study, I highly recommend, if you want to learn about short fiction, study American literature. There's great Flannery O'Connor and other stories, that happen that aren't, Susan Glassbill, A Jury of Her Peers, right? Like that's not science, but it's a brilliant short story. So Edgar Allan Poe. So
the master.
Yeah. So
also was a sergeant major, actually, by the way.
He wrote a really good essay actually about short fiction, and it's I don't remember the title of the essay, but it discusses the single effect of short fiction on the reader, and what the author is trying to achieve is a single emotional effect on the reader, so that so instead of having 20, a lot of people have problems writing short fiction because they're like, everything I write wants to be a novel. That's because you're going off in 20 different directions when you need to stick to one. And
because you don't have a strong whip hand. Yeah, I don't have any patience with that either.
Yeah.
Get control of your people.
Get control of these characters. Kill that one. I said that I am trying to work on a book, and I realized there were so many characters that I was going to have to kill some.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to eliminate some of these guys because the party is getting too big. But yeah, short fiction's a single effect on the reader, and keep it tight, and I think one of the good things, Tiffany Ross, our friend TC Ross, she talks about how writing short fiction will help you develop the discipline to complete a novel, because you have to be concise and
I
not
totally agree with that.
Yeah. So
I totally agree with that. It goes without saying, but it should go without saying. I think also if I open a story and it's not even on the theme of the anthology, I just go, what are we doing here? Guys, read the homework.
Read the submission guideline.
The guideline, which is black and white, or if it's in some strange font.
Guidelines and not going, but I thought I could do something different. No, don't do it.
My story is so great, I'm going to turn it in Wingdings font or some garbage like that.
Keep us interested, reel us in. Don't exposition. You got to destroy it. A lot of times you might insert a lot of exposition on your first draft, and that's kind of you clearing your throat, and that's okay.
Yep. No, that's
But
fine.
understand,
Getting it out of your brain.
yeah, understand you need to eliminate that though, and start with your character doing something interesting. Make me, if I'm, when as an editor, when I'm reading something, I'll ask myself, why do I care? Why do I care? And if I don't care, I'm not getting past 500 to 1,000 words of your story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
I'm
like,
brutal because I've discovered I hate being the editor.
oh yeah, no, me too. I dislike it so much that it really makes me happy when I find a guy that or girl a story that it just dives right into it, and there might be world building, there might be exposition, but it's within dialogue or it's hinted at. It doesn't need to be. I don't need an encyclopedia entry of this wonderful, clever world that you've created. Like,
Right.
who cares? Somebody needs to punch something or shoot something or throw a pie. I always say,
Yeah.
like, just throw a pie, damn it! Like, just make something happen, because nobody wants to. Those slow burn movies that you have to watch for 10 minutes before anything happens, those are okay if you're in an art house, but like
Not in short fiction. Doesn't
most
work in
people,
short fiction.
yeah, exactly, not in
You
this
might
kind
get
of
away with
fiction.
it in a novel, not in a short story.
I don't think even it works in a novel too much, unless it's that kind of artsy postmodern nothing ever happens novel. Like, I mean, I don't even want to name names, but like it I where nothing happens. So I think even in novels, even in longer works, like something needs to, like Alice Sudlow says, something needs to change in every scene. Otherwise, what's the point? Like,
Right.
there's nothing, and it can be a flashback. It can be something that somebody remembers, but it needs to change something. Something needs to be different from the start of the scene, even if the only thing that's different is the reader now knows, okay, that's why she said that,
Right.
or that's why he feels that way.
Mm-hmm. Or it's new information, right? Whatever it does that causes the
Yeah.
next scene to happen, right? There's that great video by the guys who do South Park about therefore, I think I can't remember the words they use, therefore or because in between their scenes. This thing happened. Therefore, now this other thing is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because a story is not a series of events that happens to the character, right? Your character enduring a series of events is not a story. Your character making choices based on those events is what a story is. Making choices and decisions and taking action.
Yeah. That's I'm glad you brought that up. I actually thought about that earlier when you were talking about character crisis decision. I thought about that exact thing.
Yeah.
And not everybody, but a lot of people like to poo-poo those guys because they make a cartoon about fart jokes and stuff. But like it just sit down. I would challenge anybody that's like trying to learn to be a writer. Sit down and just watch one of those episodes and just write out. Just pause after every scene break. Pause it and write what happened in that scene. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the episode, read it, and you're like, "Oh, these guys are brilliant writers." Yeah. And like, okay, they might make a joke about, you might see somebody naked or somebody's like, pooping or something, but like, it's a brilliant little concise short story, and it's also brilliant that they do it all in like 4 or 5 days every week, right? Which I've got a lot of admiration for those guys. But so wrapping up here, what are you currently working on, or what do you have lined up for the near future, Mike?
Right now I'm working on a short story for Rack Press's Plasma Pulp, which is, I guess we call it Plasma Pulp because we hate the term Ray Punk.
Yeah.
And
it's been done to death, that term.
So I have these characters called Team Calamitous, and it's totally not Doc Savage in space, right? So I'm working on that. I have a book I'd like to try to write based on my Mercs and Mayhem story about those mercenaries, and they're mercenaries that, oh man, they're indentured soldiers in Mercs and Mayhem in my story, and it's just how they're navigating that world of debt and conflict, right?
Great story, by the way. Angles of Indenture, is that what it's called?
Angles of Indenture.
Fantastic story. Anybody watching this, highly recommend Mercs and I have it over here, actually.
Edited by Nick Nethery, by the way. And in March, you and I.
Mercs and Mayhem.
Yes.
Pick it up today.
Get it now.
Fantastic stories in here.
Christmas present for your dad.
Buy 70 of them for your dad.
And the last thing I'll talk about that we have going on, because you and I co-wrote a story for an anthology coming out in March called Monster Hunter Files Volume 2.
Yes.
I think it's called MHI Files Volume 2. And this was, we don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but it was a coup that you and I have a story in this anthology by a well-known science fiction author. It's his world, and we wrote a short.
We're just playing in it, yeah. His sandbox. We're just
we have a story about a German monster hunter team called Grim Berlin, and they're a monster hunter company called Grim Berlin, and our story is called Monster Commando with the German spelling. And that story is a lot of fun too, and that's coming out in March, and I cannot wait for that.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
So that's kind of what I got going on right now.
Cool. All right, man. So I've kept you long enough, and I know you have animals to feed and sheep to shear or whatever. I don't know what goes on a farm. But
I have a bunch of needy animals that my wife picked out that all think I am the son.
Yep, exactly. That's always how it is. I got the same problem with human children. So, but anyway, all right, brother. So, been good talking to you, and we'll do this again sometime soon. And thanks.
This was fun. Thanks, man.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time. Später.